Thanks so much, Jasmine, for those stories and for your work. Last but of course not least, we're going to hear from Sheriff Tom Hodgson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you to the panelists that are here tonight. I want to start by just saying to each and every one of you how much I think all of us appreciate the fact that you're here. You care about an issue that is crossing every facet of our society and hurting us in so many different ways as a nation. And the fact that you're here speaks to, I believe, what was said many years ago about how we take on these challenges in life in our country, preserve our values and things that are really important to us. And that is that the most significant things that happen in this nation, particularly in our times of difficulty and challenge, the greatest movement that we've seen happen as a result of one or two or a small group of people who cared enough to drill down, understand what the problem was, and then take the action that was necessary. Not only to deal with the problem at that time, but to preserve the things that we value most for our children and our children's children. And so thank you for being here tonight, because you really will play an important role as you learn from all of us and the things that we've learned, that you can carry forward to your neighbors and your friends. And that's how we're going to move this country back to its original place that I think all of us are trying to find. Regardless of your party affiliation, I don't think any of that matters. This is about the rule of law. This is about the very underpinnings of what protects our democracy and our republic. That's the fundamental issue here. All these sidebar issues around, all the poor kids coming across, they need an education, they need this, they need that. We don't need to look at ourselves and say that we're not compassionate, caring people. We're the most compassionate nation on earth. But no, we can't handle everybody's problem. We feel for those kids. And on that point, I want to ask you, where do the kids in Chicago go? Mexico? Those kids that are living in those war-torn zones of violence and crime, and drugs, where do they go? And where's Congress fighting for them? You see, it's far enough away they don't have to pay attention to it. They can look like they're heroes. And actually, this is all about votes. And as I talk about what I'm going to say in regards to public safety and how it's undermining our ability to keep you safe, I really hope you'll keep in mind, and when you get through tonight, you'll understand, if many of you don't already, that Congress likes the fact that they keep throwing these things out there and creating confusion and division among the people and making us debate one another. Because if they didn't do that, we would see real clearly the target is on them. I've been working on immigration reform, not as long as Jessica, not as good as Jessica, but for 21 years. Right after I became sheriff, I went to Washington, D.C. I'd been working with, at that time, Representative Henry Hyde. I was working primarily on the Republican side, but worked with Barney Frank as well. He was working with Henry Hyde on this bipartisan bill. It was the beginnings of immigration reform. And I will never forget this, and it's important that I tell you this, and it's important you remember this from the very beginnings of what I'm saying. That bill made it through the House. I went over to the Senate side. I met with one of Ted Kennedy's staffers. And I said, listen, this bill got through the House, and now it needs to get through the Senate to begin the immigration reform issue. And without hesitation, that person said to me, well, that bill's not going anywhere. I said, what do you mean? It just passed the House. That bill will not see the light of day. I said, why? It's an election year coming up. Now, I really want you to pay attention to what I just said, because I have to tell you, I've been immersed in this for 21 years, and every year thereafter, and even as late as just yesterday, or today, the bill, the House just passed yesterday. That's exactly what's happened. It's not about us. The Congress has turned the legislative branch of this federal government into a political playground. And they're playing the American people as fools. And so, because their issues are about politics, when I think of Maureen Maloney, Sabine Durbin, and all these angel moms and dads and families who've suffered and continue to suffer and grieved over loss of a loved one, over illegal immigration. And Congress knows this. Year after year after year, they turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to what's transpired. And tomorrow there will be someone else, and the next day there will as well. And it will go on and on and on. And what's the message to people like Maureen and her family, and these people across the country, their moms and dads, when another person dies, and 2 years later another one, and more and more and more? The message basically is, you know what? We didn't care then when it happened to your loved one, and we don't care now. Because our politics and us getting elected and our power play is more important than your personal lives and what matters to you and your families. It's unconscionable what's going on in this country right now. There is an emergency at the border. I've been there 4 times. I was there about a month ago again. And it is as bad as I've ever seen it. It is out of control. And today I heard the new director at ICE say it's an emergency. And it is. I'm telling you, it's an emergency. And what we're seeing in law enforcement is this attempt by these liberal, pro-illegal people to undermine our ability and our oath to protect the people in our communities. They're trying to prevent us from working with ICE. I have a 287G program, and they're trying to say, you can't work with this federal agency. But yet I've been working with the FBI, DEA, I have people assigned to those agencies full-time. And I want you to remember about 9/11, because I was there for 5 weeks with my staff. And one of the things that we learned, and many of you will remember this, was that we needed to do a better job collaborating our law enforcement efforts, sharing information, resources. And what happened was we understood that better now because there were a lot of things going on under the surface, and agencies weren't talking to each other and so forth and so on. We were working in silos. But once we started to come together, we were a stronger force, a more efficient force to be able to protect our national security. And it's the same thing on this illegal immigration issue. Sex trafficking, human trafficking, and drug trafficking are out of control. Massachusetts is the second most common place in the United States where you will find fentanyl.
Wow.
On the border, on my last trip, one of the border agents came up to me and said, I want you to know something. If you don't know this already, MS-13 is targeting the Northeast, and Massachusetts is one of the areas that they want to lay claim. Many of you have read about Lawrence, what's going on up there. Lynn, of course, is a sanctuary. And so what's happening is we're watching as our society is eroding and things are becoming more dangerous, and they're making it harder and harder for law enforcement to do their job. And look, I took an oath, just like every one of my federal, state, and local partners, to protect you and to enforce the law. And the fact that Congress is ignoring the laws that they passed and won't pass laws to correct the problems and prevent the loss of life that Maureen and others have felt and will continue to feel and more going forward is not a reason for us to say, hey, we're going to stand down when they tell us, ignore this, ignore that. We can't do that. And if you allow that to happen, and you allow them to start to undermine our ability to work with our partners, we can't keep you safe. And we're seeing it in different pockets. I want you to, I'm just going to quickly end now because I know we want to get to questions and stuff, and that's always, I think, more useful. But I want to just say that I want you to think about 2 things. One, imagine if you would, in say, Newton, Massachusetts. The teachers said, we're going to go to school, we're going to go work our 8 hours every day, but we don't like the superintendent. So we're not going to the classrooms. We're going to just go to the lunchroom and hang out all day. Now, imagine this. If, in fact, that were the case, what do you think is going to happen in the classrooms? The bullies will take over. Kids will start getting hurt. And the teachers aren't going to the classroom because they don't like the superintendent. Not even that. They don't like the superintendent. So we start to see the erosion of these, nobody's in control, right? So if you don't think that that's right, then you can't believe it's right that we allow Congress to do this to all of us in our communities. You can't believe that. And the other thing I would say to you is, imagine that the CEO calls 3 or 4 of you into the office, you work for this company, and says, listen, our profits are down, we're losing money, we got people losing their jobs here, we can't sustain them. I need you to come up with a new organizational plan, and yada, 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 a plan that's going to increase our profits and move forward. So, after about a year, 4 of us get called into the office. Hey, what's the plan? Oh, well, we're still working on it. We're still working on it. And you know why we're still working on it? We're not going to tell the boss this. But the reason we're still working on it is because I don't want you to get the credit. And I don't want you to get the credit for coming up with the right answer. I don't want you to get the credit. So meanwhile, more and more people get laid off. The company continues to erode. But do you think for a minute the boss would let you go another 20 years to come up with an answer year after year? Of course not. And that's what we're doing with Congress. We're allowing them to go on and go on with what we know is dysfunctional, and it's hurting our families. And if we stand down on this, we people, knowing what we know, are complicit on everything going forward. And I don't think any one of us want to be that.
Okay, so I'm a bad moderator. I let everyone talk as long as they wanted, just because I myself wanted to hear every word they had to say. But I'm going to use my moderator's privilege to have a crack at questions for each one, and I'll try to make it kind of a lightning round, just so you all can get your creative juices flowing, good questions coming.